And so I'd like to welcome everybody here. And again, welcome 2022, new year, new adventures, new visions, I hope, for how we get through 2022 and maybe take a little bit of time and, enjoy what's around us a little bit more, maybe take some inventory of some of the things that bring us joy and give us life, and also to discover new things about us. So that's what I hope comes out of 2022 for everybody. So I'm really curious for you as to, first off, those 10 questions that I sent you guys at the beginning, at the end of December, the beginning of January. I sent you those 10 questions, one of which was, what is it that gives you joy, and how can you do more of that? Right? So identifying the things that bring us happiness, or the things that allow us to discover strengths or undiscovered talents, or talents that we have that maybe we've neglected. And so now, how can we do more of that? So what I'm curious, first off, is giving you a little bit of time to think about it, is was there any one question out of that list that resonated with you more so than the others? Or if you hadn't read it, what I just discussed just right now, what is it that's kind of pinging in your mind as far as, I want to do more of that, or I want to figure out what that is for me? Was there something that resonated with you? And then also, while you're thinking about that, I want to take time to, welcome people coming into the room. Hello, hello, hello. It's 2022. I got to get used to saying that now. 2022, which is kind of a tongue twister, 2022. So if you are new to the chat, please be sure to put that into the chat box for us so we can give you a proper welcome. And so let's get the conversation rolling. Dr. Bob.
Can I share with you? I get a Louise Hay motivational calendar every year, but this is from last year. I am now awakening to my golden opportunities.
I am now awakening to my golden opportunities. I like
Isn't that a great way to think about, what we can do this coming year?
It is. And I like the awakening part, where it's like, we need to look around us, because those golden opportunities might just be sitting right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I like that. And where did you say you got that from?
Louise Hay has a desk calendar,
okay,
day by day, with always a fabulous photo and a sentence, motivational sentence.
Okay, so if you want to put that into the chat, then we can capture that as a resource. Maybe other people might want to look that up. All right.
Okie dokie.
And welcome to Victoria joining us for the first time. Welcome, everybody. And so what else captured your thoughts as far as that list of 10 questions that I sent to you a few weeks back, that I put another link into the last email that went out to you as far as your nudge for this particular chat? And I'll start. For me, it was about when I was reading through those questions, and when I discovered, when I was doing research about those sorts of questions, the one that spoke out to me was the neglected strengths, the things that I do or can do that I've completely forgotten about, that I really liked doing. It's like, why don't I do that anymore? I need to do more of that, or I need to discover more of that. And for me, it was, I actually need to get out and I need to write more. I think I think I'm okay at it. So I need to really build that strength up and practice that strength, because I enjoy sitting back and putting thoughts down the paper. So I wrote that down for myself as something that I want to accomplish for this year. What about you? Oh, Stephanie.
Okay, there you are. Okay. Um, I had spoken with a friend of mine a couple of weeks before he passed away, and he said he didn't have a bucket list. He said, "But Brian, get on with your bucket list." So I said, "Okay." So now I'm almost finished my video on my tutorial on how to make video content, and I'm waiting for the weather to get warmer because it's currently minus 13 here today.
Oh,
And, hey, Bob, I see your background there. But I found an old script I wrote a long time ago. And now I'm writing all of the camera movements and positions of people and backgrounds and everything else. And I'm going to sell it as a book.
Okay.
But all of the directions of where you're looking and everything, just like you would, when you make a movie, it's, cut to here, cut to there, cut to there. All of that's in this script. It helps my brain that it's a really good script. But writing, I have 3 things I'm currently writing right now. This is one of them. So, and This is my bucket list. And to heck with everything else.
Right. So the book is the bucket list thing. And so that's going to be the focus. What else? You guys can put this into the chat, or you guys, for those of you who haven't been here in a while or first time joiners, this is a really open conversation. So please feel free, turn on your cameras. We really don't care. We don't care where you're at or what you look like or anything like that. So please feel free to turn them on, and feel free to go ahead and just shout it out. We're in an informal situation here. And so share what you would like to do this year. What's your golden opportunity? Yes, Laura.
Hi there, greetings.
Hello.
Happy New Year. Hi. I'm actually with you on this, Shannon. It's on the writing. I create a lot of my own materials. I enjoy doing that. I've moved into a position where I do it less, but I actually want to contribute more out, if you like, by sharing it more. And I think we've even had a discussion some time ago on here or on another, then listening to yourself, around actually getting your voice out. Not because I think I'm particularly fantastic with something to say, but I have experience and what I do works. So right. Thank you, Brian. And actually, why not get it out there? And also do a bit of working out loud, that sort of sharing and then getting, like yourselves, a group of like-minded peers to hone that thinking as well, rather than working a bit individually. So I guess,
Laura, can I interject here?
Yeah.
If someone asks, you just say, "Yeah, I'm great. Just ask me."
Yes.
So I think that writing bit, that getting it out, that is both a neglected strength, I think, because I'm not doing it and it works, and also the challenge for myself for 2022. There, I've actually articulated it, and therefore hopefully it will become more real.
There you go. That's
my coaching background.
Right. And as a coach, it's all about those baby steps, right? Yeah, because if we really focus really large, then we set ourselves up for failure sometimes. And that's where the next part of this conversation is going to go. And Erica, I see here, taking steps towards a career transition that involves my love of gardening. What help me understand that?
Yeah, so I work in HR, and it's wonderful and all, but I would rather someday be like a garden coach, help people learn how to grow their own vegetables. Not necessarily a landscape designer, but just I love starting seeds. I have a beautiful backyard garden that I like to work in. I love farmers markets, and I actually work with a couple of farmers to help sell their produce. Sorry, I have a dog. And so I'd love to transition that into working with people that want to grow their own produce and things like that. And I feel like when my kids are out of the house, which will be 10 years potentially, maybe. I know everyone's laughing because they never leave right when you think they will. But I'd like to be able to make that transition for myself and work for myself instead of working for a company. So
I love that.
so
I love everything
networking
about
and
that.
talking to gardeners and like taking a master gardening course and things like that are parts of those steps that I have to get there. So
Okay.
Why wait?
Yeah, just start working. Like you said, it's kind of baby steps, right?
But yeah, I know. I wish I could say why wait. Financially, right now, it's too big of a risk with young kids and all of that. But I think working toward it will be a good thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the seeds. I just received a catalog of heritage seeds, so I think stuff like that, just those little steps getting towards there. It's just, that's so great. And that's very cool too. It's good to know that about you, Erica.
Can I interject to Erica? You have a garden. Why not bring people to your garden? What's the financial burden? You already have the garden. Bring the people there.
It's not that I couldn't start doing some of it. My dog is really not happy. I'm talking to all of you.
Don't worry about it. We've all had them.
It's not that I couldn't start like small. I just can't rely on it as my sole income source right now. So it can't take over my life as much as I wish it could right now. So plus I live in Wisconsin. It's really cold here. I don't know, Dr. Bob, you've got a beautiful background. I'm guessing that's not really where you are, but I wish I was there.
I'm 20 minutes away, but if you don't like the drive, there's a pool in the backyard that works just as well.
There you go. I know. And here we were just talking about this before. It's 1 degree here, minus 12 with wind chill. So I'm with you, Erica. I'm on the Wisconsin border. So I hear you. All right. And Victoria, 2021 was a big year of a reawakening for me personally. And I'd like to translate that same sense of reawakening to my professional life. I feel like my career needs a shakeup. Oh, good. So now's the time to start thinking about that, Victoria. So Victoria, you want to shed more light on that?
Sure. Yeah, I think so last year I had some big personal things change in my life, and while it was very disruptive, it was also I guess that sense of reawakening and taking risks and being true to myself and prioritizing me. And I'm finding that as I'm going into this year that I'm starting to question, my career path and the direction that it's going, and things that I found enjoyable about being in L&D in the past, I'm not finding as energizing anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is this just a temporary lull, or is this me internally going, you need to do something about this and maybe explore some other paths? So I'm considering going back to graduate school. I'm considering, taking kind of a different direction within the company. I want to have some mentoring conversations with some other people in L&D. And so those are the things that I'm pondering as I start this new year.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. I see nods. We've all experienced that sort of L&D burnout, and I've certainly been there. And it's, to me, when I found myself in that position, it was, okay, this is what I do, but there are other aspects of it. Why did I get here in the first place? Why did I choose this path in the first place? And I need to reconnect with that passion. And I think that's part of the mindset question that I sent over to you guys, which was discovering your why, right? What's the why? What's the motivation behind what you're doing and what you want to do? And let that be your North Star. So when you have that why and that value of helping others, or whatever it is that drives you, maybe it's the creativity outlet of it, Maybe it's the helping others. Maybe it's, I really want to see businesses succeed, or I really want to see people succeed. Whatever it is that is your why, then you have to think about the other things that surround you. Do these other things support that why? If not, then how do you get back there? Or how do you bring that component back into your life? Right? While you have these other things that maybe are maybe they're not so much North Star-ish. I still have to do this. I still have to pay the mortgage, but there are other things that I can do that might bring life, right, to what I do on a day-to-day basis, And so I feel you. And I know that there are others that are with us today, so yeah, you see it in the chat. Deborah, Deborah, I think you and I have had this conversation.
Absolutely. And I just put a link in the chat about, it's a Simon Sinek TED Talk about inspiring action, which talks about finding your why and that golden circle of why. I don't know if any of you have watched it, but it is fantastic. And finding my why is so important. And I guess since I'm already talking, I'll just kind of mention that I find that I fell into the lull of virtual training and did not do a lot of the prep work and preparation and content, review, all of the things that I used to do in person. I kind of lost a lot of those skills and just really fell into a monotonous rut. In almost coming across prescriptive, not prescriptive, but just reading a script almost, and it became monotonous. And in this new year, I want to bring my creativity back into the virtual space. It doesn't really give a lot of room for that. And I feel like I need to make room for it, because I felt like I was in a lot more of an exploration phase when I was training in person, and I challenged myself to make it different every time. And I don't do that virtually. And I don't know how many of you feel that way, but.
Yeah. It's easy, isn't it? To just sort of, you get into that routine, boom, 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 turn on the camera. And then you don't really, and I'm with you. You used to spend all this time thinking about creative activities for people to do. And then now it's like, it's like, I don't have the energy right now. Right. Yeah. And so I hear you, and getting back into that creative space. And I think that's kind of what, I think that's what Laura was talking about. I know that's what I was talking about, and Brian, and where can we get that creative outlet, and where can we put it in a place that feels good to us? And that might be writing that book, or that gardening, or video creation, or animation creation, whatever that creative outlet is that's going to make you feel good. So I think that those are some wise words. And thank you for putting the link to that video up there again. I need to go back and watch it.
Can I ask Deborah a question?
Sure.
Do you always do the same video from the same position? Do you ever get up and walk around? Do you ever use another background or another location, something that will inspire you to say, oh God, instead of, oh look, there's a squirrel, to tell people, oh look, there's a squirrel, and you then go into that and then go back to what you're talking about again, just a little diversion, something.
So from a delivery standpoint, I do, right? But a lot of our breakout sessions are prescriptive in nature, because they have to get there's a desired outcome from that breakout, where you're hoping that they come back with certain level of conversation, and that inspires engagement is when they come back from those breakouts. And I try to be creative in having some ad-lib conversation around that. But with the time constraints that you're giving in a virtual space also, it's challenging, right? Because you only have maybe an hour or 2 hours, and then that's max, and everybody has to go right back. So there's just not a lot of flexibility with time either, with the content.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And so now it's bring those creative juices. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to get into the conversation of discovering what your vision, as it were, for 2022 is going to be. So I sent over a really quick worksheet that I put together, and I sent that over to you. And if you have it in front of you, that's great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and I'm going to show it to you. Okay. So what we have is this, and I've used this a few times in a few organizations. And what I really like about it is that it is quick, and it's thoughtful at the same time. So what we have is, first is understanding what the goal is, or what the vision is. And as I started off this conversation earlier, is that I'm not a huge fan of the word goal, because sometimes we put so much weight on that word that it becomes distracting in of itself. So what is the vision maybe for your 2022? And then important to this is putting in a completion date. We do need to have some sort of date attached to this, because that old saying, a goal without a date is just a dream, right? So we want to move past that stage. But then also is identifying your why behind that vision. So if you want to write more, why is that important to you? Is it because you want to work out loud more, or maybe because you do have good ideas that you want to share, or you want to, like me, I need to break through the wall of, and I'm sure you all have been here before, is that wall of, why do people want to read what I have to say? I'm one voice out of thousands. Why should they choose me? And sometimes that gets you back into a corner, and, it's hard to break out. So maybe the motivation is, I just want to break out. I just want to put some creative thought on paper. So understanding your why is going to help you throughout the rest of this exercise, because when you start to chunk down your vision, each part of your chunk should align to your why. Okay, so now if we say that the goal, and we'll jump onto Brian here. So let's say the goal for this year is to write this book. Okay, so then the why might be because you feel like you're good at this. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I don't know if it's true or not, Brian, but it's like, you feel like you're good at this, and you want to share this knowledge with the world. Okay, and so to me, that's a good why, and it's something that you feel that you want to get off your bucket list. Okay, so then when you think about writing a book, there are certain actions that need to take place before you write a book. And if we put in our planners, in your daily task list, if you say write a book, that's never going to happen, right? So we have to break that down into actionable steps. So maybe your first chunk of that is attending a writing class, because maybe you're not so secure in your writing skills. So maybe you want to take a writing class. Maybe that's the first thing you want to do. Maybe the second thing you need to do is thoroughly research your topic. Maybe the third thing you want to do is you want to think about, well, maybe it's the design, book design. So now I need to investigate that. Okay, so you have those three things. And of course, behind each of those three things is a date. So if you say you're going to take this writing class, or maybe go through a symposium, or maybe participate in, the November challenge of writing, right? Then in that, you need to have a completion date. But more importantly to that is that you need to have action steps. So if you think about, I'm going to participate in a writing symposium, then the natural action steps to that is investigating all of the options, choosing one of the options. Maybe it's creating a budget so you can actually buy it, or maybe it's one of those things where you need to break in time in your calendar. So what are the action items that are going to support this, right? This first chunk. And then that is going to align to your goal. Does this all make sense to you? You guys all on board with me? This should not be, these are probably not unfamiliar to you. You all are professionals like I am. You all have taken these steps, I'm sure, but I just want to re-emphasize the importance of these steps. And then the last part of this is moving the steps into your calendar. This is the part that we forget about often, is that we make these wonderful action steps, but then we don't do anything with those action steps. We don't move them into our calendar. We don't move them into our planner or onto our whiteboard or onto our vision board. And we fail to do that. And when we fail to do that, then one action step rolls up into the next one, which rolls up into the next one. And then the next thing you know, you've got this big action that's sitting in front of you that is very hairy and very scary. And now I'm going to put it away. Have y'all been there? Because I have been there. So high five to all of us who have been there. Right. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to start getting us on the right track and thinking about this. So if you think about, if you just took your goal and you broke it into 3 chunks, and if each 3 chunks had 4 action steps, that's 12. Those are 12 action steps. Even if you took 1 a month, right? Mm-hmm. Or 4 a month or 4 a quarter, then you can see where your goal has the greater likelihood of getting completed by the time we end the year.
Yep.
And then hopefully in December, when we're all back here again, then we can revisit this and we can go, ta-da! This is what I did. Either you did part of it, you did all of it, you did 3/4 of it, but you got something accomplished.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
I personally set aside every afternoon between 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock, lock myself away, and I only do what I'm supposed to do when I write or when I do research or when I do whatever. Nobody bothers me because I told them, this is my time, leave me alone. And they do.
Yeah.
So I set that, and it's every day. It's 7 days a week. That's what I do. And I find I get a lot of stuff done. And then my wife says, you want to go shopping? And sure. So, or take out the garbage or shovel the driveway, whatever, but not in the afternoons.
Yeah. And I know several people who have that. And one person, a coworker or networking peer of mine, he works from home and he has children. And so he puts the different signs on the door that says, I love this. It's not don't disturb. It's I'm thinking. So I'll put a sign up that says, I'm thinking, and dad needs quiet time. Or I'm working and you can interrupt me if one of these things is happening, like you're hungry or whatever, or doors open, you can come on in whenever you want. So I really love that sort of prescriptive guidance that you give to kids, because if you say don't disturb to your kids are like, whatever. Whatever. That doesn't work for me. But I think that really works as far as focusing your time and putting time into your calendars. So now what I want to do is I want to break you guys into groups, and I would like for you to have a conversation about what you think your vision is for 2022. And that again could be something broad, like you want to take more advantage of your creative outlet, or you want to find the joy and you want to get more joy into 2022, or something more succinct. Like I saw in the chat there, somebody wants to get more into Articulate or e-learning software. That's a great goal. So it could be broad or it could be narrow. Whatever your vision is, it's your vision. So whatever your vision is for 2022. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put you all into groups. Is everybody cool with that?
Sure.
All right. So anyone want to share what was some of your discussions?
Some of ours kind of had a theme that sometimes your goals are not aspirational, they're not fun, but they could be, when they're accomplished, they're powerful things that can be very freeing when they're done.
That's a great discussion. Do you have an example?
One person talked about decluttering. Oh, go ahead, Maureen.
Yeah, it was me. I was talking about kind of like, I'm fine and everything, but like in this uncertainty of life is just getting all my kind of like my affairs in order so that if anything happens to me, my children are not burdened with, they can grieve my loss, but not be like then resentful of all the crap I've left behind, but also know like, so part of it's decluttering. But also getting a will, drawn up, and good tip came out that go to your financial institutions to make sure beneficiaries are updated on things, make sure that it's current. So my next step is I do pay for legal services as part of my benefits. I'm going to contact the legal service to start preparing a will.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's a great example too. And you're not the only one. I've had that thought myself, Yeah.
Can I say that for the past 4 or 5 years now, my wife and I, because we're both in our mid-70s, our funeral and burial is all paid for. Kids don't have to do anything. Everything is taken care of. Put me in the ground, done. It's a worry. Like, what do you do? How do you find the money? No, it's already done.
Yeah. And I think
that's paid for.
That's a great example. That's a great example of goals that may not necessarily be fun, but it is satisfying on some level, right? Because we've got something done and it's going to benefit someone else. So I think that there's a lot to be said about having goals like that aren't necessarily you focused, but are other people focused too.
Yeah.
So what were some of the other conversations that you had? Hi, Jason. Do you want to share?
You still?
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was having audio issues for most of the time, so it was a little tough for me. Mine was trying to get back to really figure out what it is I want to do for this year. But they kind of got it out of me. I think the big one is moving from doing to leading. I'm a training manager and I have a lot of work, but I end up doing a lot of the work instead of leading people and helping them become better.
Yeah. I think that's a great one. So what do you think are your action steps?
Well, the first one is convincing my VP that I have enough work to support at least one other person so that I can do things.
Okay. All right. So there's a business case that needs to be written.
Right. And I've shown it to her now. She wants me to walk through and explain what all these things are that I put our pipeline together for this year. And we have probably, I think it's 5,000 hours worth of work.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the person works 2,000 hours a year. So we've got enough for two full-time designers.
Yeah, for sure.
Not counting the other ideas that she has that she wants us to do that aren't on my pipeline.
Right. And I think that's so perfect. So when you start thinking about some of these goals, you start thinking about the risk benefit ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's an action step that some of you might need to take for some of your own goals. It's what's the risk benefit? What's the business case behind this? And if it's personal, there's still a business case behind it. It's like, why am I going to do this? What do I get at the end of the funnel? What comes out, and is the juice worth the squeeze?
I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are some of that could be a first action step for a lot of what some of you might be contemplating. Yeah. What were some of your other discussions?
Brian's was really interesting. He built on that book that he wants to write, and he was taught how to build a car, or we were taught how to build cars way back, but now machines do all of that.
Right.
So I really liked his approach to his book of how do you tell somebody what's interesting about your business, or why they should care about your business, and his how to make that video. I thought was really a great way, because a lot of us, when we're trying to do something creative, it's like you said, why should somebody care about what I'm writing? So
Right.
making that important piece out to people, I think is going to be a big win for his book.
I agree. And that kind of connects to the why statement, I think, is, well, maybe it's not a why for you. Maybe it is the why for the customer, and the why for the customer is the why for you. What's your motivation for doing, some of the things we do? What's the motivation behind, this chat or newsletter or anything else that we do? I think it's on the flip side, it's understanding, well, what do you hope your customer is going to get out of it, or, the participant or the audience or what have you. So I think that's an important step too. Yeah.
Yeah. And understanding that when I'm writing and teaching, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about the student or the person I'm speaking with. It's like, when I teach someone how to make a video about the product, it isn't about the person or the company. It's about solving the problem that the customer has by using your product. How do you tell that story?
Mm-hmm. Although I think that there's something to be said. I don't think there's anything wrong, as I'm reading through your comments. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a you-focused why. Maybe you do want some spotlight time. Who am I to say that's bad? Maybe you do. Maybe you deserve it. Maybe you've got great thoughts and great tools and great things. And, the spotlight does deserve to be on you. I think that's okay, to have those sorts of goals. And I think we all want to make an impact on some way or another. Otherwise, why do you do what you do?
Yep.
So I think that that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So, Maureen, for those interested in decluttering, a slob comes clean. Decluttering at the speed of life. Man, do I need that. You should see my office. Okay.
Yeah, Erica said she should be Dana's marketing publicist because she likes to mention herself. But she is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to that too. I think some people feel better when they work in a decluttered environment. So you always, I don't know about you, but I started out the year trying to declutter my office, and then by the time 12 months passes, it's all back.
Yeah. So one of the things too she talks about, and it's very powerful, is to be honest with yourself about your fantasy self and your actual self. Because I have all these things and part of it goes with creativity. Is oh, well, I could make it this and I could do this. But instead, all these unfinished projects just sit and stare, and it just subliminally sends me a message it's taking up space. It's taking up physical space. It's taking up mental space. It's, so it's about being realistic about, if your future self and you do that, you will have what you need to be able to acquire those things. Let them go now. They're taking up space in your limited container, and
yeah, I think that's great. And so she writes about that.
Yep.
I need to read that. I need to read that because I never thought about it that way. I've never thought about it that way. I think that's a great catch. I need to read more.
YouTube and reading, both for her. You can find amazing stuff, Shannon. You'd love it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to share? Amy? KJ? Anyone want to share what you guys discussed in your groups?
I was in the group with Jason. So, we had Laura shared hers and Victoria shared hers. I think they shared with the whole group their vision for the year, and they were quite inspiring, as well as Brian's. And Jason and I were on a similar track, so it was interesting to hear Jason's, because in November I had gone from a team of 4 to my 2 trainers being moved to another department to train specifically for them, and so I'm now a team of 1 for 650 employees, and lots and lots of regulatory training and so on and so on. They recognize I need more help. It's just a matter of, I really need to figure out how to help that recognition of the fact that I need more help to kind of get pushed above the other positions that everybody else is, putting out their appeals for. Like, I can't support those other positions until, you know what I mean? So how are we going to provide for those other new positions? We've opened 100 new positions since, I think, just in 2021. Not to mention the filling of other positions as we've had retirements and so on. So we've done really good as far as getting people in. Our turnover is usually pretty low. So it's just, that keeps it overwhelming. So my goal right now was to survive for the next few months while I'm still just myself, until we get a trainer in and get them transitioned and so on. Even my manager retired at the end of December, so I don't have a manager right now. So then they'll start mid-January, and we have to transition her and, get her started. So it's a little bit of craziness. And like I said, I'm just surviving day to day and trying to remind myself it will still be there tomorrow. There's no need to stress over it, and just take a breath, and, you don't have to answer every single email as soon as it comes in the inbox. So
I hope they pay you a lot of money.
No kidding. Laura, I see.
I asked for a raise, so
good.
So they do me good. They do me good. So
I think what's interesting in what Amy said, which was, in our group, which was about letting go of who she had been, in terms of, I always used to respond really quickly to emails. I'm not being able to do that, which also links in with that sort of Swedish death cleaning, with the letting go of your inventory of stuff. I've cleared out a load of shoes, recognizing that I was never going to wear those high heel shoes again. And it's actually letting go of that perception of who you were, and embracing that bit about who you are now, and actually coming to terms with it, whether it's in a business context, and people have talked about big changes this year, in a personal context as well, and actually, recognizing that there's a great deal of inspiration in that, if you found it really tough, that you've kept going, and this is who you are now, as well as, this is who I'm looking to be. When for me, like declutter a load of ridiculously high shoes that clearly just don't fit anymore.
Right.
I did actually have a chat with a friend, and I have bookcases behind me to the other side, and we decided that maybe what I should do is put the shoes up there instead of books now. Because they would be a timeline of who I was and who I am now, but we decided that sort of, descending from the sort of shoes of my youth, if you like, to the trainers now was actually felt more of a sort of retrograde step, rather than the ascent of man sort of, coming out. So
right, it becomes an art piece.
Whatever works.
An art piece.
I did do a bit of that, rest in peace, my former self. Yeah.
That's great. So in the thank you, Linda. I think that there's also room here for, when you set these visions up for 2022, is to consider your professional, what you want to do professionally, like Jason and Amy, et cetera. You want to be able to get a better grasp on what you're doing and how you're doing it. But there's also, don't forget about you. Remember, this should be the year of you. And that's what the email said. And so now, how do you take care of you? What does that look like? Because we often start off these years kickstarting our professional selves. What do we want to do for our business? What do we want to do for our jobs? How do we want to improve in our roles? But then we forget that it's like they say on the airplane, right? When the oxygen comes down, you've got to put it on yourself first before you help the children or others around you. And I think that is an important component that we shouldn't let go of. So while we're thinking about everything that we want to accomplish in our professional lives, what can we do in our personal lives to support this so that we don't get all of that burnout that we've all been experiencing over the last couple of years just because of everything that's around us, and it affects everybody differently, from a mental perspective. So we want to be sure that we're taking care of you, right? So don't forget that. So maybe that big rock goal sheet, maybe you do one for you personally, taking care of you, and one for taking care of your professional self. So maybe there's two.
And set realistic goals. So people I find do it. I talk with Jennifer and Tracy and everybody else. They become unrealistic and they become overwhelmed with what they set themselves to do. So.
Right. Which is why those actions, that's why I added those particular actions. So you have the chunks and you have the actions. So that way you don't overwhelm yourself, because it's much easier to take those little steps. If I take one action and then two actions and then three actions, and then I've got a chunk done. And then if I take these other small actions, then I have this other chunk done, and I think that we can all, that's manageable, that's relatable, as a whole.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else want to share before we call it a Friday? Renee?
I want to share one more thing that I learned a long, long time ago from one of my controllers when we were building accounting systems. He would say, Brian, concentrate on this. There's something else over here. Pick it up, look at it, put it back down and carry on. It's there. It's not going away.
Right.
So when you get that done, pick this up, do it.
Right. Exactly. That's true. That's a great point. Thank you. Anyone else? Like I said, I started saying, Renee, I hadn't heard from you, or anything you wanted to share before we signed off?
I just think this helped me kind of think about what my goals should be. And one of the things that I do a ton of is administrative work. And my goal is to do non-administrative work, because that's what brings me joy.
There we go.
So that's something that I'm going to be thinking about how I can make that happen.
Okay. Good for you. Good on you. All right. So in the chat, I also put in a reminder for next week's Learn Something New Wednesday, which was all about storytelling. So and that is pay what it's worth, to join up. The minimum of that is $5, but join in. I'd love to see you all there. I'm also interested in carrying this particular goal conversation forward. So I'm going to put something in the next email that goes out. Maybe we can start a little side group that can help us work through our goals throughout the year. Would that be interesting to you guys? Yes? Okay, good. So I'll put something like that together, because I know I need my feet held to the fire. So I suspect that I'm probably not alone in that. So I'll send out a message and we'll see who wants to join our little, I hate calling it an accountability group because that sounds so blah. But,
something wrong with accountants.
Yeah, right? So something like that. But here we are at the top of the hour, our first chat in the books for 2022. And I look forward to carrying this conversation forward. Our next chat, we've got the Learn Something New Wednesday, which is next week. And then our next coffee chat, I want to say, is supporting managers for learning reinforcement. So we've got a lot of managers out there, and they're the first line of defense between you and the participant when it comes to learning. So how can we help them support learning more in the organization? So I believe that's the one that's coming up in 2 weeks. I might be wrong about that, but I hope I'm right. Okay. All right. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. I hope you're doing something special. For those of you in warmer climates like Dr. Bob, we're all very jealous. of you going to the beach. The rest of us, those of us who live in colder weather areas, we're grabbing big blankets and turning on the fire. That's what my plan is today. So thank you for joining me. I hope that you guys found this valuable.
Yeah.
It was nice to see everybody.
Yes, it's great to see everybody.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you so
Good
much,
to see you,
Shannon.
Deborah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Shannon.
everyone.
Take care, guys.
Have a good weekend.